Welcome to From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Here you'll go from making ends meet behind a keyboard to living in true freedom by using real estate well. Never having to work a full-time job, report to a manager, or give your adult life to a corporation that probably doesn't care about you. We will give you everything you need for your journey: techniques, principles, real-world experience, and application, filtered through 5 key power principles from my book, People Power, Other People's Money, How to Win, Enjoy, and Reserve. Get ready to take notes. Let's jump into From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Welcome to From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Have an awesome guest here today. He has an awesome name, Hans. We got to talk about that soon here in a second. Hans Seelinger is let me start with the beginning. He started as a salesman in a warehouse for Puma and ended up as a general manager for them. So he worked his way up the rungs, but then his country's economy collapsed and he was kidnapped along with his wife. Ooh. He ended up moving to the United States and eventually got mentored in multifamily investment. Today, he's a full-time investor operating 114 units, but as of next week, closing is right around the corner. He will be operating 340 units total. He also underwrites and helps other people underwrite with his coaching business, and over 20 students are served there. Welcome, Hans Seelinger.
Thank you, Ivan. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here, and it's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. Excellent. Did you want to add anything to that intro too?
Well, you just nailed it. It's been quite a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think my journey is a journey of start over. Right, it's never too late to start over.
Yeah.
I believe it's just sometimes life just throws you a curveball, and you just have to deal with it and make the best of it.
So I'm sure a lot of people are curious off the top of the head just hearing that. How did you make it through that ordeal?
Yeah, the fun part, I wouldn't say the fun part, the strange part is that it became so common in my country, in South America, to be kidnapped. Now, when you told somebody that, oh, I was kidnapped, and said, oh, how many times have you been kidnapped already? And you're like, no, it's the first time, and I hope it's the only one.
Wow.
And it became very common. That's when I said, this is not going in the right direction. I just need to find something new, right? Okay. And that's basically what happened. But yeah, you never know how you're going to react under such pressure, right? And not knowing how it's going to end, right? Because when it ended, okay, I'm here, right? But there's a lot of people who did not make it in those express kidnapping, as they called it there. But yeah, it was horrible. But it's just sometimes you have to understand that money isn't everything, right? I had a good job, I had a good position, I climbed the corporate ladder, right? And but then when your family is at risk, then you just say, I have to start over again.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So speaking of family, did you escape or did your family help you get out of that situation?
No, I talked myself out of it. That's called something that was an express kidnapping, right? So they took us to the bank, wiped our bank accounts, right? You had to go with them.
Gosh.
They of course took the vehicle, and in many cases after that they kill you, right? So, but I don't know, maybe I was lucky. The Lord was on my side, I would say, on that day, and they let us go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Glad you made it out of there, bro.
Yeah. It was not fun. Not fun.
Okay. Well, usually the first section is people power. The full outline of it is people power, other people's money, winning, enjoying a reserve. But I want to really kind of stay in this for a minute here. People power. We could also draw how people could bring power out of you in this case, and not necessarily build you up like the usual meaning is. So how are you careful, I guess, around people taking power away from you based on that experience?
Well, to be honest, I believe most people are good people, right? It's just a very small percentage of people who are bad people, but they're very loud, right? And make us, be afraid of everybody. But I do believe that if you want to be successful at anything in life, you need to be able to build teams and trust in people, because by yourself you can only go that far, right? But if
Yeah,
you actually build a winning team, right, then you are able to accomplish much more. Does that make sense?
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And so tell us about the team that you put together. I guess
Well,
to even come to
for a
America,
multifamily,
or
sorry.
I guess to first of all come to America to explain that journey, and then get work your way into multifamily.
Well, America is one of those amazing countries, right, that actually has immigration policy, right? So I first came in with the same company I was working in South America. They put an office here, so I was a transferred employee. But after a while, well, since the country collapsed and I basically was without an income, I had to find a solution, right? But
Mhm.
there's different ways. But yeah, I had to find a good attorney to help me, right, navigate that. And I was able to do that, and I'm a resident now. That's happy. I'm happy about that, right? Being able to live in this amazing country. But then, in order to move forward with the real estate investment, right? I had a lot of mentors. I had a lot of friends, right? And I believe, if you if you put your mind into something and you have a goal, right, and you start working towards that goal, things will start unfold, right? You maybe don't have the whole thing lay out completely when you start, where you know where you're going to end, but once you start walking, you have to have that faith, right? When you start walking,
Mhm.
doors will start opening, right? So I met a broker that helped me, that was in the real estate that I didn't know, that helped me a little bit to understand the whole multifamily thing, because that was something for me. Multifamily, it sounded like, well, are you married to two different people, right? What you have two families? That's what was in my mind what a multifamily was, until I learned what it was, right? And because it's a very particular business model.
Yeah.
And then I took some education with Grant Cardone, right? My
Okay.
wife told me, that guy on internet, you should look him up. And so I did. At the beginning, I was not very fond of his style, right? But my wife was very wise, and she said, "Well, he's loaded and you're broke, so so you better see what he's doing, because he's definitely a successful person." Does
Yeah.
that make sense? So then I started going deeper into multifamily. I gathered first all my savings and some of my family saving, and I bought a 12-plex, right? And I thought I had everything. Now I'm in the multifamily. And when I started really researching about it, I realized I was a very, very small player on it. And I was just thinking, like, how can I leverage this? How can I make this bigger? That's how I learned about funds and syndications, and using other people's money, right? And that's how I then got bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and before we started too, we had a brief conversation, and one of the things that you did was also help your wife. Was there other little odd jobs here and there you did to
Yeah,
repay?
well, you know, uh, when you're desperate, right? When you had an income and you had your family, used to living at a certain standard, right?
Yeah,
When you lose that income, all your savings start to drop dramatically fast,
yeah,
right? So I was trying to solve that by, becoming another manager or something, trying to seek a job, but it wasn't that as easy as I thought, right? So my wife started a balloon service, right? Luxury balloons service decoration, and I was a delivery guy. I had to do what needed to be done. But
yeah.
while I was doing that, and being happy, somebody giving me a $20 tip, right? I really felt like I really hit rock bottom at that point when I had that $20 bill. It's like, yeah, I'm being tipped for delivering balloons. How low did I fall? Right. So I started seeking for help, right? And one of the helps was, of course, finding a mentor, finding people to teach me, because
Yeah.
I do believe that's very important, right? To If you have somebody who already walked that path, right? Why don't you ask them if they can help you, right? I started
Mhm.
reading books. I think one of everybody should have read by now is Rich Dad Poor Dad from Robert Kiyosaki. It's a very inspirational book.
Hmm.
And he talks about, ask people to help you, right? Ask people to help you. And I started asking people to help me, and they started pointing me in the right direction. And then, of course, I paid for some education, and that got me into the results.
Yeah. The reason why I asked for that to be elaborate on that is not to be like, yes, I want to hear all about your low points so I can hammer you.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
It's because success is not a straight line, right?
Oh, no, it's not.
And I think it's important for people to understand that. And to do things like that, I think, although we may feel down on ourselves, I think God looks at us in a high light because he's
Yes.
saying, oh, wow, this guy is doing whatever it takes to make sure his household is taken care of, including if he feels bad, he's going to make it happen so that there's food on the table. So I think it's easy to go in a cycle of shame or, oh, how could I let this happen to me? But it's actually, God sees it in a different light, I think.
I completely agree with you. And, I was recently at a conference, and there was this guy who was saying that God created us to be amazing, right? To
Mm-hmm.
be he made us to his image, right? So we are meant to thrive and he said for him, the difference between heaven and hell would be when we die and we go, God is going to present ourselves with the version he created us to be, right? He said heaven is if you meet that person and you recognize yourself and you say, you did it, yes. And when you fell down, you stood up again. I love how you did that and how you heard this. He said hell would be if you and that person are complete strangers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you're like, oh yeah, but you don't know what happened. My country collapsed, and and this happened, and and all the circumstances. I couldn't do it. So I think that's a lot of truth in what you're saying is we are created to thrive, but it's not a straight line, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you see success stories but you don't see the the burning of the midnight oil that it takes to succeed. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to talk about that. That's not sexy on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. Another thing related to that, um, that made me think of heaven, or when you mentioned it, was I believe in one Bible verse there's a talk of we will reign alongside God.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so does one really believe if you had a free and easy life where you did nothing and everything was handed to you, that you deserve to reign? Do you deserve to be a leader, a royalty, to
Yeah.
be a part of the hierarchy that he's preparing? I seriously doubt that. Like, he's giving a little bit of a, hey, could you have thick skin here? Could you
Yeah.
work your way up to be a general with me? That sort of thing excites me personally.
Yeah, yeah. You got to be
Uh,
the best version of yourself, man.
exactly.
That's definitely. I think in this business and in any business, one thing you were talking about people, right? It's you meet so many interesting people, right?
Mhm.
From brokers, from lenders, from property management companies, sponsors, right? Sponsors is a key part, right? Because I bought a $7.2 million property, right? And I was broke, right? How am I going to buy a $7.2 million property? In most people's mind is like, you're crazy, but it is possible. I found the property through relationships with a property management company,
Yeah.
right? They gave me the contact information. That's how I got in contact with the broker. And then finding a sponsor that, is going to sign for the loan, who's going to help you through the process. That's what I'm saying. Tell you people, there's amazing people out there who would be willing to help you, right? And of course, everybody's taking a cut of the pie, right?
Yeah.
But hey, isn't it nice to have a piece of a pie, right? Than just have the whole of nothing,
Yeah.
right? So
100% of zero.
100% of zero. I
Yeah.
think it's better to have a smaller percent of a big pie than to have the 100% of zero. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yes, people, and you're going to meet so many interesting people and so many nice people that will be willing to help you, right? And going back to how I built that team, first on my education, I partner up with people and I started talking to people, right? I think one of the most important things is you have to tell people what you want to do, not your goals specifically, right? Some things you need to keep private, but people need to know what you're trying to do because you never know who is out there willing to help you get there faster.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of good people with goodness in their heart.
Yeah.
And they also don't have time necessarily to do the things that you do.
Yes, exactly. And you hit the nail on the head because, for example, finding deals, it takes time.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe a sponsor who is a high net worth individual, right, who has the resources, has the experience, who wants to do more deals, but he doesn't have the time to start, looking for the needle in the haystack. Well, that's when your sweat equity comes. That's when you have the opportunity to be part of this amazing journey, right? Because I think everybody has the dream of, yeah, I want to resign my W-2 job and I want to become a full-time real estate investor. And you can do that, right? And people say, well, how do I do it? Well, you have to start doing what no one else wants to do, right?
Mhm.
You have to start doing the dirty job, which is let me find the needle in the haystack. You
Yeah.
start doing that while you still have your W-2 job, right? Or in my case, out of desperation, because I didn't have any job anymore. Right? But once you start doing that, it's the value you can bring, right? You become valuable to the marketplace. I like to cite this phrase of Jim Rohn. He always says, right, you don't get paid for your time, you get paid for the value that you bring to the market, right? So if
Mhm.
you become valuable by being able to provide a deal to someone, right, and say, hey, I have this deal, I underwrote it, I have the whole business plan here, and they look at it and they say, this makes sense, right? Then they will say, you know what? This guy, he has something going on. Yeah, I'm going to invest together with this person, right? And that's how you start building teams, right? But you have to put your sweat equity. You have to be willing to bring something to the table. It's not just because, hey, you look nice. I'm going to take you. I'm going to give you something. You have to be willing to work for it.
Yeah, for sure. And there's coaches that will even that I've seen and experienced that will give you massive discounts if they've worked with you before
Yeah.
and they see that you're serious about this, because there's like probably 90% of students that pay for this stuff don't actually do anything. So for a coach to see somebody actually grinding, they're actually going to want to be more motivated to work with you in different ways.
Yes, and you know what? And that's the thing. Most of the people sign up and they just expect that because they paid a X amount of money, now somebody's going to solve the problem for them, right? And basically, when you take coaching, right, and we do also underwriting coaching, right? if if you don't put your part of it, right, if you don't take action, right, and when you listen to all these motivators like Tony Robbins, or they say it takes massive action, right? You have to take the education and now start doing something with it. I can teach you how to talk to a broker, but I can't talk to a broker for you. I can teach you how to underwrite, but I can't underwrite for you, right? I can teach you how to talk to a sponsor, but you have to take your part of you have to lift your weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
In order to succeed, right? But
Exactly.
yes, I believe also the secret in many, for example, in our coaching program is we have a system which is you have some accountability. I'm not just teaching you how to do it. I'm evaluating. I'm giving you something like homework, and if you don't pass, you can't go to the next level. So
Oh.
I'm making sure that you really learn the lesson because that's what happened to me, right? You get this ocean of knowledge out there, right? But it's just a finger, it's just an inch deep, right? So it's a lot. It's a lot of things you have to learn, and terminology in real estate. You have to learn a different language. I mean, real estate is a different language, right?
Yeah.
Rate and exit strategy and debt service coverage ratio. You're like, what the hell is that? Right?
Exactly.
So there's a lot of things at the beginning, right? But at the end, it's just like practice makes the master. You have to just start doing it. And
Yeah.
once you do it, it's just with anything in life. If you're consistent, you will make it. If you want to date somebody, right? It's not just like, hey, I want to date you. Oh, I was just waiting for your call. It's not. It's not like that. You have to have several conversations. You have to show the best version of yourself. So it's the same thing in any business. You have to be consistent and stay there, right?
Yeah. There was this TED talk I heard recently where he figured out if you practice something for 20 hours, you'll actually be pretty good. Not an expert, but you'll be good enough to be dangerous. And he actually spent 20 hours on learning guitar, and he played for the entire audience, and really sounded good. He played like a variety of 5 different songs. So in just 20 hours of learning, he learned that. So
Yeah.
don't be intimidated by how much knowledge there is. If you just focus, like an hour a week or something like that, or I'm sure whatever his system has, that could be great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think you just, what you just said is so important, right? Sometimes you have this goal that is so big that it's like intimidating because it's like climbing a huge mountain, right?
mhm,
But if you take just baby steps, right? I like always, I like to say this, just get 1% better each day. At
mhm,
the end of the year, you're 360% better, right?
yeah,
It doesn't take a one big thing to happen. Just make consistent small steps in the right direction. It just, it's just incredible how that changed the outcome.
amen to that. So we've naturally kind of cut through other people's money or resources also. Is there anything else you wanted to add that in terms of preparing somebody like a beginner to identify the right money or resources, contacts, etc.?
Well, for example, in multifamily, what I always tell people is you have to understand the business, right? That's why underwriting is so important. And underwriting is no other thing than just to understand the financials of a business, because in multifamily, you're buying a business, right? You're not buying a property, you're buying a business. The business is you have tenants, right? Your product is the units that you have. So it's just like any other business, right? And if you increase the income, right, the net income, which is the NOI, net operating income, you will increase the value of the property, right? So you will force appreciate it. So what you do in multifamily is, if you understand the numbers and you understand what you can do in order to bring this property from here, from $100,000 a year to $150,000 a year, you increase that $50,000 NOI, right? That will increase the value of the property. You sell the property, you make a profit for you and for the investors. That's basically, in a nutshell, the business model.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to understand the numbers, regardless if you're going to raise capital or if you're going to be underwriting or if you want to manage the asset. Whatever the role you want to do is, you have to understand the numbers, right? I always like to tell new people, don't fall into the trap that, I don't want to have nothing to do with the numbers, so I'm going to only be raising capital, or I'm a good manager, so I'm going to be asset management, or I will do local relationships. When I hear people tell me that, that's more or less for me the same thing as hearing like, Ivan, let's go on a road trip, right? You'll take the car, right? You'll take the steering wheel. I'll handle the accelerator. My wife will handle the brakes. Let's go. It's gonna be a disaster, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to move forward with your team, everybody needs to know how to drive, and we can take turns driving, right? So the car doesn't stop. The same thing is, if you want to start investing and building a team, everybody on the team needs to be able to perform all the activities, right? You may have some strength in one side, right? More number side, or maybe more on the networking side to meet investors, but everybody needs to understand the business plan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And if somebody is starting in this business, what I would suggest is just get education, right? Because that's just going to cut the time, the learning curve, very fast, right? So you can learn faster, but also start talking to people that this is what you're doing, right? I mean, I've had, family members invest in deals. I've had friends invest in deals, right? And then you start creating your network, because what people say is, I found out it's true. Your net worth is your network. You start connecting with people, and people will introduce you to other people. That's
Mhm.
how this works. It's a people's business, right? Because you're helping. At the beginning for me was like, I'm asking people for money. I'm buying a deal and I'm asking for money. And I was like afraid, because I thought I was really asking for money. And the reality is, asking for money. I'm giving you the opportunity to make a return on your money, I'm giving you the opportunity to multiply your money, to invest in a deal. And when you start seeing it that way, then you understand it's a win-win. I'm going to make a profit because I'm going to make sure that that this property is going to perform well, but you're making a profit as well, also, and it's a passive investment for you. So it's a win-win for everybody. That's the way I see this.
Yeah. And if you're somebody that has trouble with numbers in general, try to think of, well, there's a couple points here, but the first thing that comes to mind is rap lyric. A rap lyric I just remembered that says, I made all this money and all of a sudden I'm so good at math. And it's just like, of course he wants to know where his money's going when he has a motivation to. So if you think about your motivation, like what's a worst case scenario that could happen in a property? What's your quarterly distribution going to look like? What's your exit distribution going to look like? Like envision yourself as that rapper, essentially. Where's your money going to make yourself good at math by motivation? Like if a roof goes bad, how is that going to affect your take home for that quarter?
Exactly.
Yeah. Or if you do your job well, how's that going to affect your take home for that quarter too?
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that too?
Well, it's always good to be conservative on the numbers. I see a lot of people that want to desperately buy something, right? That they just take whatever the broker tells them. And I mean, the broker's doing his job, but he's representing the seller. He's not representing you, right? So he wants to sell the property for the highest price possible. You need to be able to analyze and do the proper due diligence and inspect the property and have on your budget things aside for everything you just said. For example, we bought this property, 100 units. While we were doing inspections, we realized that there was a problem with the HVACs, right? The previous owner, he put an A-frame roof. It was a flat roof. He put an A-frame, and the HVAC units were on the roof. But when he put that roof, that became an oven. So those things were just baking over there. So we're not performing as they should. And this past summer, guess what? It was one of the hottest summers we've ever had, right? So a lot of those units we needed to change. Of course, we were able to retrade, meaning we were able to renegotiate the price because we found that problem once we were buying. So those things you need to know. But we also set aside a budget for that. And things cost more and take longer than than what you think, right? So we set aside a budget of almost $5,000 per unit, right? For HVACs. They ended up costing almost $8,000.
Oh, wow.
Middle of the summer, still some supply things going on in the market. Boom, they cost more. Good thing we have the budget. Good thing we retraded. So if you want to be successful in this business, you have to understand that you don't pay what they're asking, you pay what makes sense for your returns, right? And if you can't make the deal, well, then you don't make it, right?
Yeah.
And be conservative. I would always advise everybody, be conservative. Conservative means, just set aside a budget. You can't just buy a property and put all the money there, and now you don't have money to operate it. Because things will happen,
Yeah, when you mentioned retrade, it made me think of different markets have different terms for things. That is you reduce the price to offset your
correct.
loss.
You originally negotiated a price. In this case, we negotiated 7.4, right? But once we did due diligence, meaning once we did the inspection of all the property, we had to negotiate a $200,000 discount because of the units that needed to be replaced. So that's what you call a retrade.
Yeah.
Basically.
I believe that's also used in Arizona, retrade. I know you're enjoying that content, but I just wanted to personally invite you to the Commonwealth Affordable Housing Fund. If you want to passively earn while also building communities, doing philanthropy even, while getting quarterly distributions and even sharing in the exit about 5 years down the line, then please join us. This used to just be for friends and family, but you could join in now. You could be essentially earning through an expert, which is I, running the investment firm Commonwealth. So if you want to be a part of it, and also get access to exclusive events where we go to in-progress construction and I show you how your money is being used actively, and how the renovation was just complete, and how this is going to help change people's lives, how we negotiate an acquisition. So you could be a part of those events throughout the year and also earn passively. So if you want to be a part of that, please click the link below, and I'll let you back to your awesome content. Thanks. In Atlanta, we mainly use price update or price reduction, which is not as sexy.
Not a comfortable position to be in, because a deal could, fall apart at that moment, because the seller could say, oh no, you take it as it is or leave it, right? And if that happens, you're faced with a decision to make. Should I continue or not?
Yeah.
If the seller would have said, no, I'm not going to make any discounts, we would have had to say, okay, we have to find the next one.
Exactly. Speaking of industry terms, another thing we mentioned was the sponsor as a part of a syndication. Do you want to elaborate on the definition of that for any beginners?
Yes, a sponsor is basically a person that will qualify for the loan. We buy these properties with debt, right? And if somebody's going to give you a loan that is, $2, $3, $4 million or even higher, well, you need to have a net worth in order to qualify for it. And you also need to have experience. Because if I won the lottery and now I have 100 million and I want to buy a property, not because I have the money, they will give me the loan, because I need to have the experience, right? So those are the two qualifiers. And these people, basically, they call sponsors. They are also called key principals or equity sponsors. They help you basically sign on the loan so that you can buy the property. And there's different levels of sponsors. There's sponsors that will only sign on the loan and leave you to manage the asset. But there are also other type of sponsors who will become part of your team, and they will help you raise the money, and they will also help you run the asset. Because as this is a business, if this is the first time you are buying such a property, you always want to have people with experience on your team, someone who has already, gone through that path and know how to tackle small things, right? You will also have a property management company, a third-party property management company, because you don't want to manage that yourself. You don't want to be dealing with tenants, toilets, termites. That's the 3 T's they always say in real estate, right? You're not involved in all that. You're managing the property management company, a third-party property management company. That's why we buy larger assets.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but that's basically the definition of a sponsor is the person who will sign on the loan and qualify.
Excellent. So we are going into winning next. And the easiest way to break this down is deep-rooted fulfillment. When you get a personal win, like maybe it could be very gratifying to see how your students are succeeding. Like what's an example of a win for you?
That's, for me, a win is anytime you are able to get some progress, right? Because to get to the finish line, it requires a lot of small progress steps, right?
Yeah.
So if I were able, for example, I'm doing a coaching program. I finished the first module. It's a win. Right? You are now one step closer to your end goal, right? And I believe, for me personally, I like when my students, of course, have success. I believe that's a big fulfillment, because to be able to give back, right, to other people, that the knowledge that you have is actually impacting somebody else's life. I mean, there's nothing that's more gratifying than that, right? You can buy yourself a new car, a new house, and that's just going to be great for a week, right? But the sensation you get that you were able to help somebody actually, make a big step forward. For example, we have a student that made it to best and final, so they're this close to closing their first deal. Once you close your first deal, it changes you, right? Because it's now you accomplished this thing that everybody was telling you it's like this unobtainium, right? You have to deal with a lot of negative thinking. I think it's loving negative thinking, but family members, friends, like, oh, Ivan, yeah, you want to buy 100 units, but I don't know if that's good. Why don't you stay with what you're doing? It's a safer bet, and you want to ask them, hey, do you want to invest? No, you're just starting. Let me see what happens in the future. So you have to fight all that. So
Yeah.
once you finally made it, right? It's like when Sylvester Stallone got his Oscar for Rocky, right? He was like, and this is for all the people who said I was not going to make it, right? So you're like, yeah, I did it. So I think that's a big win when you accomplish something like that, or if you help somebody accomplish that as well. I think that's very gratifying.
Indeed. I totally agree with that. And what you mentioned made me think of that book, Atomic Habits, in which they have a bunch of different scenarios of how just 1% difference could help. But they focused one of the stories on a biking league based out of England, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And this biking league was at the bottom of all the cyclists in the league, like the tournament, like the Lance Armstrong type tournament thing.
Yeah.
And the coach said, we're every month, let's just get a little bit better, just at least 1%. So what's an example of that? Like, oh, let's change our pillows to be more comfortable because that'll help us sleep better. And if we sleep better, we could perform better. And let's improve what we take in on our bodies. So little progress here and there. And guess what? Within like 3 years, they were at the top 3 of the entire tournament. And from the freaking bottom, which had to be at least dozens of different cyclist groups. So
yeah.
don't break yourself down for making little progress. Every little progress counts.
Every little progress counts. I like to use the analogies like when you're planting a seed, right? That's going to become a tree that's going to give you some fruits someday, right? If you have an orange tree or whatever. But it's not like you have the seed, you put water, and the next day you have a big tree and you take
Yeah.
the fruit. Right? It takes a while.
Yeah.
Right. But it's every day you water it, you do something to improve, you read a book, you wake up 15 minutes earlier and you start doing some exercise. And for me, that I was never an exercise person, right? Starting to do that, like, okay, I want to wake up 15 minutes early. And it seems like nothing, but those 15 minutes, they're
Yeah.
cruel in the morning, right?
Yeah.
So, and you start doing it, what am I going to do with 15 minutes? That's not going to change anything, but it does.
Yeah.
It changes a lot, right? Because before you were not doing anything. Now you're adding up 15 minutes every day. Guess what happens? That's a couple of hours not that you now done exercise that before you didn't do. And next thing you know it, you're not doing 15 minutes, you're now doing 20. Right. And now you can do a sit-up or you can do a push-up, right? You don't have to be Schwarzenegger, right? But you're doing just a little bit better. And it just makes you feel better with yourself. And that reflects on anything. Yeah. Same thing, you're looking for a property and you're like, well, what am I going to do? You talk to one broker. Now you're one conversation closer to closing your first deal, right? So you have to celebrate those small progress. I do believe in that. Small steps lead you to big journeys.
Yes, indeed, for sure. I have to definitely wake up earlier myself. This morning, my contractor called me at like 8 a.m. He was like, "Hey, could you meet me at Home Depot?" I was like, "No, I'm still in bed right now." Like, he could hear my voice, like, sounded like a zombie. That's not a good look for a leader of an organization when your contractors are hitting the streets more than you. But yeah, how do you enjoy what you've built?
Well, I think the biggest joy for me is to have time to spend with my family. All right. I always hear this. I haven't heard anybody on their deathbed saying like, "Oh, I wish I had worked more. I wish I had more money." I always hear people always complaining about it. How much would I give to have spent more time with my family? Mm-hmm. I have 2 small kids, daughter that's a 9-year-old, and I have a son that's 12-year-old, right? And a beautiful wife, and my biggest treasure is my family. So being able to be flexible on time, right? Because it takes time. I mean, sometimes I need to burn the midnight oil, right? That it happens, right? It's not all just unicorns and rainbows, right? It takes time. but I also have the flexibility that I make my own hours, right? So I can tell my family, you know what, let's just go this weekend to the beach, or let's just go for a walk. Let's just walk the dog together. Small things like that, they add up, right?
Yeah.
When you're able to have breakfast with your family or lunch with your wife, right? Every day. That's priceless for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give that away for anything in life. You know, that's the most rewarding thing. And yes, of course, being able to provide financially for the family, it's awesome. But there's many ways of doing that, right? But doing that and losing the ability to be with your kids and see them grow and your family, I think that's for me the biggest win and joy that I get from this.
Yeah. And it gives you definitely options and freedom for options.
Yeah.
And let's break it down to even a basic level. Once you get to a certain point, you're literally printing money.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people have the ability to do that. People always need a place to rent, and you'll be the person receiving it and sharing it with the people that were there with you.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing. I was at a Christian men's conference this past weekend, and one of the speakers mentioned how one of the guys he raised capital from for his biotech company, he has a $14 billion company. And so this capital investor was talking to him, and this Christian guy was having deep conversations with him, and the guy that had this gigantic company said, I could buy anything I want, but the thing I can't buy is my daughter talking to me again or reuniting with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the cost it took for him to grow that company and spend 100 hours a week working there and neglecting his family. So that's another cool thing about multifamily. If we do it right, we could still spend time with our family, the things that we truly care about, and not destroy households.
Exactly. And it's also a business. You're providing good housing for people, right? So people are creating families in your units, right? In your apartments. You're helping people grow as well.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, there's many ways of giving back. For example, on the 233 unit that we're closing next week, we have a project there. We're helping people come back from homelessness back into productive members of society.
Wow.
Right? Because we joined a program in Vegas, which is called the Leaves program, and they really figured out how to solve the problem instead of just lifting the carpet and hiding them. Right? It's just like, how do we actually make these people come back to society? And there's a lot of people who want to do that, but they don't get the chance, right? Because of the record or their credit score, or they just don't qualify to get rent anywhere. So this program is actually awesome because they're addressing both sides of the business, right? Landlords, nobody wants to have a homeless guy in their property, right? That's not the right crowd you want to go after. And any investor is going to raise their like, what is our tenant base, right? That's not. But they understood the only way to surpass that hurdle is give us more money, right? You pay more rent for them, and we will consider it. Give you more security, address that. So they understood that. So that's going to be good for us as investors, right? Because we're going to get a higher return. Mm-hmm. But the way they're helping them and the way your money is actually helping grow and save hundreds of families, right? Is they have to report to a caseworker. The county is going to pay for the rent, right? But they have to start paying back after 60 days. They will help them how to make a resume, how to get a job. They have affiliated companies that give jobs to this crowd, right? And they have a success ratio of over 80%. So these people come from being homeless to get trained on how to get a job. They get a job, they start paying back their rent to the county until they pay 100%. Then they switch utilities on their name. So they have, something to show for that, that they're actually paying. Yeah. They're building their credit score back. And then after a year and a half, they move out from our property and go to a new property, right? They're just now productive members of society. So talking about, doing good with your business, right? It's just like, it's just awesome. That's an amazing feeling when you know the impact that somebody can have while investing, getting your money, but also what that's doing to those families, because that person may recover his family. I can tell you, my sponsor, he was homeless in 1999. He owns over 3,000 units right now.
Wow.
So people can turn their life around,
Yeah.
right? So those are the nice part of the stories, that if you're in multifamily or in real estate in general, there's a lot of good things you're actually doing, right? It's a business, and it's a business not going anywhere. There's no technology that will take away that you need a place to live, right? You need a roof over your head, right?
Yeah.
So
Awesome, man. As we come to the last point here, reserve. There's lots of different reserves people could consider: financial, spiritual, emotional. For a beginner, which one of those would you say is top of mind to look out for?
when you say about reserves, is like what are the risks involved?
Oh, reserve, like, for example, you may advise a beginner to say, hey, have at least 6 months of your personal reserves before you leave your job. Or when you take on a deal, maybe reserve 30% for your budget of repairs. Yeah, how would you? And then there's more personal reserves too. So any one of those
Well,
you could speak to.
I believe in my opinion, the first one needs to be your spiritual, your mindset, right? That in order to grow in any business, you need to first grow internally. You need to be able to resist the temptation of giving up. Most people give up, right? In anything. They go for the safe bet. I have a job. I will stay here on this job. Anything else is risky. And, but for me, it's riskier not to try, because I don't want to live in regret, right? I don't want to be 80 years old and say, yeah, if I only had done this before, right? So I advise anybody just to have multiple sources of income. So if you have a W-2 job, you don't have to go quit to start doing real estate, right? You can do that while you're doing your job, right? But that's why I'm telling you, first, work on yourself, right? Work on your mindset, on your spiritual being, so you have the strength to do both things at the same time and not quit, right? And then if you are already in that path, right, don't compare yourself to anybody, right? Don't compare on, yesterday I was in a conference with a person, and he said, God terms are not in chronos, are not in hours and minutes, are in, certain things need to happen, and then they move to the next level, right? So I think it's the same thing when you're investing. Don't compare yourself like, I need to do this in 3 months, or I need to be able to quit my job in a year, or whatever. Just put yourself some targets, and when you hit the target, then you move to the next phase, right? And if that target is hit, you hit it in a week, well, great. If you hit it in a year, well, don't go down on yourself because somebody was able to do it in a week and it took you a year. You have to look at it as, I achieved this, right? It's like climbing Mount Everest. It doesn't matter if you did it in 3 hours or if it took you 3 months to go over there. You're just now part of the very small percentage of people who actually were able to climb it, right? And that's the way I see it. You have to be goal driven, not time driven, right? So once you hit a certain goal, then you go to the next phase. Does that make sense?
Yes, for sure.
And if you're buying a property, one of a good rule of thumb that we have on reserves, right, for the unknown is about $1,000 per door, right? Or have at least 2 months of operating expenses as a reserve, right? So if your property has expenses of each month of about, I don't know, $30,000, well, have at least $60,000 reserved for the unknown, just there, right? If it's a 100 unit property, right? Well, then have $1,000 per door. That's $100,000 that you need to have for the unknown, because the bigger the property, well, the bigger things are going to cost, right?
For sure. Good rules of thumbs there. And to your previous point, did you know the Hamilton creator of the play? I believe it took something like 20 years to actually release it.
Wow.
So he did all the writing done and stuff. And some people could look at that and be like, that took too long. but a mature person could be like, that took probably the right amount of time it needed to take. And now
Yeah,
it's a sensation, right? They got massive artists, massive actors associated with it. They
yeah,
had vice president even visit it too. So it's this massive hit. So it took the time it should have took.
exactly. I mean, if you look, there's so many stories in success stories out there, right? Where you see that time, things happen in a certain time. You see McDonald's, right? Ray Kroc, he started when in his 50s. He was a mixer guy or a salesperson, something like that. He used to sell this shaker machine or something like that. And that's how he then started with McDonald's. Same thing with Colonel Sanders with KFC, or there's so many other success stories of people who just started. And I think there's I see right now a trend, right? Like if you're 25 and you haven't made it, you lost it, right? I see a lot of younger people, they're just like on this because there's so many new rich young people. I think this is a generation where we have the wealthiest, youngest people, right? In a short amount of time. So there's a lot of pressure for people on succeeding. And I say there's no shortcuts on success, right? You may be able to do a quick thing, right? But you have to make it sustainable. Because at the end of the day, my dream is I want to be able to not have to work, just wanting to work, not having to work, right? So that my passive income covers everything in my life that I can live and leave something to my kids that they don't have to work, right? But it's good that you just want to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 So I don't think it's never too late. I think just take the amount of time it will take. It can take you a year. It can take you 10 years. It can take you 10 minutes.
Yeah. And probably to your other point, what could accelerate that is the self-work too. Because for me, it took several years of procrastination to actually make the moves. But I still did do moves. Like I'd say the 3 years leaving my job, I cut out expenses that were useless, liabilities like a muscle car that I would spend endless amount of money on repairs for. Um, but the self work really helps to cut the procrastination. Like this is important to me. Why am I letting my subconscious control what my conscious does? And being able to dive deep into the spirit, into traumas, into other aspects of life could shortcut, not necessarily to like a super speed acceleration of your goals, but it'll definitely get you faster there, versus somebody that's down on themselves. To your point, oh man, my friend is a billionaire at 25. I'm useless. I'm stupid. Like there's a lot of, I'm sure, that conversation going on in somebody's head.
Yeah. And that's why I think the important part is, invest in yourself. Uh, if you don't have 15, 20, $30,000 in your account, right? Then you have to understand, hey, you need to start doing something about it, right? Because you have no reserves for anything that could happen in life. So invest in yourself, right? Invest in yourself. Take education, get better at something, and become more valuable, right? In multifamily, the most important skill is the underwriting. Get good at underwriting, even if you don't like it. Oh, I don't like numbers. Well, guess what? Money is numbers, right? So if you don't like numbers, you don't like money, right? Because you need to
Yeah,
understand, yeah,
I
because
love
money is
that.
numbers. It's
Yeah,
numbers game, right? So you need to be able to get out of your mind and say, I'm not good at this. Henry Ford said, if you say you can't, you're right. And if you say you can, you're also right.
yeah.
Right? It's just whatever you say to yourself, that's going to be the truth. So if you
Mhm.
say, I'm not good at this, you're not going to be good at it. If you say, I'm going to make it, you will make it.
Amen. Indeed. Awesome, brother. Well, we wrapped up that last point. Any other last tidbits you want to share?
No, just never, you only lose if you quit.
Yeah, indeed. So keep on pushing hard.
That's it. That's it.
Hard and smart too. Don't forget the smart too. You got to get education. So how could people get educated, by the way, with your coaching program?
they can reach out to us. Our email would be info@uw2win, it's just underwrite2win.com, and we can get in contact. You can also go through my Facebook, and we can reach ourselves there. And we would love to help you fast forward your journey in real estate to get you to win deals.
Amen to that. And then on the other side of your business, are you still raising capital for your syndications now too?
Yes, actually we are. We opened a crowd fund on this particular deal because so many people wanted actually to be part of the humanitarian side. So for the first time that I've ever been involved in multifamily, we have a minimum investment of $5,000. Normally on these deals, it's like a club. You get invited. It's accredited investors. It's hard to get into this, right? It's only, the 1%ers that are invited to come in, right? With 100,000, 500,000. Sometimes the minimum is as low as 50,000. But to have it open for anybody, literally anybody, right, for $5,000, I think that's an awesome opportunity. If you want to come in to that, also reach out to me, right? And we can then discuss how you can come into this deal as well.
Excellent. And we'll put your information in the show notes and description below.
Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Hans. And
thank you so much, Ivan, for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. And thank you for watching or listening to another episode of From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. Thank you for joining us on another episode of From Tech Developer to Real Estate Developer. I hope you got a lot of return on investment for your time today, and I encourage you to share it with other people so that they could also get returns with this valuable education to invest in real estate. We're also sharing this free education because we want to help people learn how to invest so that they could also create more affordable housing units. We have a great goal of creating 2.5 million affordable housing units by 2047, and free education like this is a big part of that. So by you sharing, you are a part of the equation to create those affordable housing units. So I can't wait to see the end of the road that we're going to achieve together. Have an amazing and blessed day.